Bite the disease of loss. Censor is shy. I will update you on the current situation of the Middle East war. This is the update for May 15th. The Iranian regime is trying different ways to reduce the pressure from the US Navy's blockade of its ports on its economy. The United States is continuing this blockade operation, and it is expected to put considerable pressure on the Iranian economy going forward. The US Navy diverted the routes of 3 merchant ships between 4 p.m. on May 14 and 9 a.m. on May 15. The US Central Command stated that since the blockade began on April 13, a total of 75 merchant ships have been diverted, and among them, 4 have ceased operations. At the same time, the Iranian regime is also taking measures to preserve key economic resources such as foreign currency and raw materials in an effort to calm public anxiety and prepare for the expected shortage of supplies. The Iranian government seems worried that ongoing economic pressure may spark social unrest. On May 15, Iran's Ministry of Agriculture Jihad revised the import price and foreign exchange limits for rice and cooking oil. This is seen as a way to prevent food shortages and price spikes. Also, Mobarake, Iran's largest steel company, stated through a spokesperson on May 15 that there are no problems with steel supply in Iran. However, the US military recently attacked and destroyed major facilities that were responsible for about 25% to 30% of Iran's annual steel production during the war. Mobarake Steel Company was targeted by US military attacks during the war, and major projects were recently suspended. Iran's energy consumption optimization chief also stated that as of May 1576, petrochemical complexes are still in operation, maintaining a total annual production capacity of 100 million tons. He added that Iran is constantly importing raw materials to address shortages. However, according to the Israeli military, during the recent war, Israeli airstrikes caused significant damage to at least 2 Iranian petrochemical complexes, crippling more than 85% of Iran's petrochemical export capacity. The Iranian government is reportedly creating a separate support package for companies impacted by the internet outage. As economic pressure intensifies like this, the Iranian leadership is also showing signs of emphasizing internal unity and solidarity even more. On May 15 for Persian Language Day, Supreme Leader Mojtaba Haman's social media account posted a message saying national unity is needed to withstand external pressure. On the same day, Esmail Baghaei, spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry, visited West Kurdistan province and thanked the Kurdish community for protecting Iran's borders while emphasizing internal unity. These actions relate to earlier warnings from Iran's intelligence that worsening economic conditions could again spark large-scale unrest. According to sources who spoke with anti-regime media, it is known that this warning was reported at the National Security Council meeting in April 2026. A senior Iranian official insists on guarantees before talks to prevent future US and Israeli attacks, and the regime seems to want official recognition of its control over the Hormuz Strait as one such guarantee. Major General Mohammad Ali Jafari, commander of the Baghiatollah Social and Cultural Headquarters under the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, stated on May 14 that the United States must meet the confidence-building measures demanded by Iran before any negotiations can take place. The Iranian regime has long sought to gain recognition of its control over the Hormuz Strait, and it appears to view this as a means to deter future military actions by the United States or Israel. In other words, international recognition of control over the strait itself serves as a kind of confidence-building measure. Jafari's remarks seem to represent the core hardline forces in Iran, not just his personal opinion. China has yet to clearly state it will cooperate with US efforts to secure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. President Donald Trump claimed that after his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping from May 13th to 15th, China wants to help with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said reopening the strait is in China's national interest, so he expects China to use its influence to pressure Iran to open it. In China's official summit announcements and briefings, the Iran issue received little focus, with only general positions repeated from earlier statements. Iran's claim to control the Strait of Hormuz conflicts with China's official position. China's UN ambassador Fu Kong stressed last April that maritime route safety and security must be ensured. He added that China does not support Iran's attacks on Gulf countries or blocking the Strait of Hormuz and hopes normal navigation resumes soon. China realizes that if Iran gained significant control over the strait, its energy and trade transport would become more reliant on Iran, potentially setting a negative precedent for maritime law and freedom of navigation. However, it seems that China currently has no intention of taking direct action or intervening to reopen the strait and ensure its security. It is being suggested that Iran may have deprioritized some hardline measures, such as collecting tolls, in order to gain cooperation from countries like China, and at the same time to have its control over the Strait of Hormuz effectively recognized. Iranian authorities often said they could charge tolls on ships in the strait, but the first official announcement of toll collection came on April 23. Iran has since exempted friendly countries like Iraq, Pakistan, and Malaysia from the toll, indicating it now prioritizes international recognition of its control over the Strait of Hormuz over revenue. China has stated its opposition to the toll system, yet reports say Chinese vessels still use Iran-approved routes through the Strait of Hormuz. However, it's unclear if these vessels have paid the toll. Iran may be trying to encourage more countries to accept its procedures and regulations by easing some measures, such as tolls, that the international community may react sensitively to, and as a result, strengthen its authority over the Strait of Hormuz. However, some worry that even partly acknowledging Iran's control over the strait, with or without tolls, could seriously harm the global shipping system. So far, the Iranian authorities have maintained their position that they have no intention of giving up control over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran claims that it will keep the strait open, but at the same time insists on maintaining the authority to permit and regulate the passage of ships. This means that Iran could arbitrarily restrict international maritime transport at any time, and if necessary, even leave open the possibility of attacking civilian ships while targeting specific countries. Al-Bayt announced on May 10 plans to speed up doubling Fujairah's oil export capacity to bypass the Strait of Hormuz and lessen their country's strategic vulnerability. Crown Prince Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan of Abu Dhabi has ordered the UAE state oil company ADNOC to expedite the East-West pipeline project. Once the project is completed, the UAE's oil export capacity through Fujairah will increase to a maximum of 3.6 million barrels per day by 2027. An extra 1.8 million barrels per day will be added to Fujairah's export capacity. Right now, the UAE exports about 1.8 million barrels daily through the Strait of Hormuz. During the recent war, Iran launched multiple drone and missile attacks on the Fujairah oil fields and pipeline facilities. Anonymous Western diplomats told Western media on May 10 that Saudi Arabia is considering a possible non-aggression pact with Iran after the war. It's still unclear how much progress has been made in negotiations with Iran. Iran has repeatedly targeted Gulf countries' civilian infrastructure, despite claiming its actions were only against US military assets. Therefore, even if a non-aggression pact is signed between Saudi Arabia and Iran, there is still analysis suggesting that Iran could launch deadly attacks on Gulf countries under the pretext of targeting US military assets stationed in those countries. The UAE reportedly blocked a joint statement Iran pushed for at the BRICS foreign ministers meeting. The statement allegedly condemned the US and Israel's war against Iran. An official from India, which hosted the meeting, explained that the joint statement was not adopted due to differences in opinion among some member countries. This is being interpreted as meaning that the UAE effectively blocked the adoption of the statement. In response, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi claimed that some countries prevented agreement on parts of the statement, emphasizing that Iran's military actions were solely aimed at US bases. He argued that a US military base in another Middle Eastern country could still be attacked. However, Iran has also carried out attacks on civilian facilities. On May 15, the US State Department announced that Israel and Lebanon had agreed to extend their current temporary ceasefire by an additional 45 days. US State Department spokesperson Tomefi Kakat said both sides agreed to extend the ceasefire to allow for further progress. This announcement appears to be the result of a high-level meeting hosted by the United States in Washington, D.C. from May 14 to 15. High-ranking officials from Israel and Lebanon met to discuss maintaining the ceasefire and future negotiations. I'll upload a video if there are more updates. That concludes the video. Thank you.